Urine tests of 1,000 children in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai revealed the presence of veterinary antibiotics. In Yunnan, there were reports of foul-smelling meat. For the sake of profit, there's nothing capital won't dare to do. Only things you can't imagine, not things they wouldn't attempt. Just look at the children in China's so-called 3 major eastern provinces. Every day they eat chickens raised in just 3 months, ducks in 4. All kinds of vegetables and melons are soaked in formaldehyde. What flows in their veins is no longer fresh blood, it's preservatives. What we need is not just test results, but real accountability. See this? Know what it is. This is the soy milk we usually drink for breakfast. You think it's made by grinding real soybeans? Not at all. Watch closely, just add a bit of chemical powder, and the liquid changes color instantly. See? Transforms right away. Then throw in some white sugar and a few slices of dried jujube for flavor, and that's it, sweet in seconds. Drink up. This kind of soy milk? Even 3 big pots sell out fast. 1 yuan per cup, cheap and tasty, right?
In the heart of China's bustling cities and quiet villages, a silent poison creeps into every meal, every sip, every bite. The nation, once revered for its culinary heritage, has become a breeding ground for fake food, a grim reality where profit trumps human lives. From breakfast to dinner, the average Chinese citizen navigates a minefield of contaminated products. Bread laced with preservatives, yogurt concocted from chemicals, noodles doused in industrial oil, and tea tainted with sulfur fumes. The crisis has reached a horrifying peak, with reports of thousands of children in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai testing positive for veterinary antibiotics in their urine. This is not just a health scandal, it is a moral catastrophe, a betrayal of trust that threatens to unravel the fabric of Chinese society. As the nation grapples with this self-inflicted wound, the question looms: how did we let it come to this, and what will it take to stop it? The day begins with a seemingly innocent breakfast. A slice of bread, a cup of yogurt, perhaps a steamed bun from a street vendor. But beneath the surface lies a sinister truth. "I don't like drinking it," a woman confides in a market, her voice tinged with suspicion. "The taste is different, unnatural. Chinese milk doesn't have that pure flavor. There's always something else mixed in." She's not wrong. Milk, vegetables, meat, all are suspect, often laced with pesticides, hormones, or worse. "It's serious," she continues. "The vegetables, the meat, they're not natural. They've got all sorts of chemicals, so the meat might be harmful. I'm not really reassured." Her words echo a growing unease among consumers, a realization that even the staples of life are no longer safe. For children, the consequences are even more dire. In a chilling exchange, a 9-year-old boy is asked, "Do you drink Chinese milk?" His response is immediate: "No." When pressed, "What happens if you drink it?" he replies matter-of-factly, "My stomach hurts." This child's instinct to avoid milk is not mere pickiness. It is a survival mechanism in a country where food can be a poison. The statistics are staggering. Over 120,000 children and young adults diagnosed with tumors in just 3 years, alongside a surge in rare diseases. Chronic illnesses shadow the population, from frequent colds to debilitating conditions, all linked to the toxic cocktail infiltrating the food supply. The deception extends beyond the home kitchen to restaurants and street stalls, where pre-packaged, chemical-laden dishes masquerade as gourmet cuisine. A man in a viral video points to his groceries: meat, vegetables, buns, wine, dumplings, and marvels at a curious sight. "Friends, isn't this strange?" he says. "Look at this scene. This guy bought all these things, but notice the flies only land on the buns and dumplings, not the vegetables. What's going on here?" The answer is as unsettling as it is simple. The buns and dumplings are likely pre-made, stuffed with preservatives or worse, making them a magnet for pests while the vegetables remain untouched. Such pre-packaged horrors are commonplace, with dishes like fragrant rice meat costing a mere 18 yuan to produce but sold for 88 yuan in restaurants, a markup that fuels the cycle of fraud. The fast food industry is no less culpable. A delivery worker, his voice heavy with guilt, warns, "These 3 types of takeout, you should order them sparingly. The hex check in them is beyond your imagination." I've been delivering for 2 years, and some things, even if given to me for free, I wouldn't eat. Sometimes I see what customers order and my conscience can't take it. I have to warn them, especially about the third one. Eat it less. He lists the culprits. Fried chicken, small portion dishes like braised meat rice and barbecue. The chicken, often from questionable sources, is marinated in a slew of chemicals, composite phosphates, tenderizing powders, and flavor enhancers, to mask its inferiority. The oil used to fry it? Black and foamy, he reveals. Changed only every 7 or 8 days, and only if sales hit 8,000 yuan. Barbecue, meanwhile, is pre-fried in rancid oil before a quick char on the grill, a cheap trick to cut costs while endangering health. Even desserts are not spared. A baker demonstrates the alarming truth about colored cakes. Don't eat cakes with these colors, he urges, holding up a vial of black food coloring. Just 1 drop turns clear water into black ink. Now imagine how much is used in frosting. He adds 10 drops, then 20, then half a bottle, yet the frosting remains a dull gray. To get that deep black, you need this much dye. Think about how much coloring you're eating in those dark cakes. The revelation is a stark reminder that even the most indulgent treats are vehicles for chemical overload. The fire pot restaurants, a cornerstone of Chinese dining, harbor their own dark secrets. A man recounts a haunting conversation from 5 years ago with a truck driver who delivered ingredients to such establishments. We were chatting, he recalls, and he told me how they make things like tripe and duck intestines for fire pot. I swear it was so disgusting I still want to puke. The driver described a process akin to black magic, where ingredients are soaked in a chemical brew for weeks to achieve the desired texture. It's like the old witch's cauldron, the man says. Boiling for years, then you dunk the stuff in for 49 days and voila, black magic perfection. When he asked if this was limited to cheap eateries, the driver's response was chilling. I asked, do you only supply these small cheap fire pot places? He gave a dark laugh and said, everything's got it, everything. This pervasive fraud is not just a culinary betrayal, it is a public health disaster. The overuse of antibiotics, pesticides, and additives has turned China into a counterfeit nation, where even the wealthy flee abroad to escape the toxic food supply. Hospitals overflow with patients, their bodies ravaged by the cumulative effects of these poisons. The government's response? New regulations and crackdowns. Feels like a hollow gesture in the face of rampant corruption and greed. I just want real solutions, a frustrated citizen laments, not more test results. Will there be criminal penalties for those misusing antibiotics and additives, or are we just waiting to poison ourselves to death? The crisis exposes a deeper moral failing. Businesses hide behind national standards, a bare minimum akin to a student scraping by with a passing grade. Yet, as one commentator pleads, if everyone only aims for a 60, what's the point of earning billions while harming the public? Don't think, I don't eat this myself. Your family eats what others produce too. This vicious cycle will spare no one. The call is clear. Chinese people must stop harming their own. The nation stands at a crossroads where the pursuit of profit must yield to the preservation of life. Without drastic change, stricter laws, transparent supply chains, and a cultural shift toward integrity, China risks collapsing under the weight of its own greed. A nation undone not by war, but by the food on its plates. China's fake food scandal, a poisoned society. A nation betrayed by greed. Chinese food industry has descended into a cesspool of deception, where the pursuit of profit has turned the act of eating into a gamble with death. The rampant production of fake and contaminated food is not just a public health crisis, it is a moral and societal abomination. From toxic additives to outright fraudulent products, the Chinese food market has become a battlefield where consumers are the casualties. This is not mere negligence. It is a deliberate assault on the well-being of millions, enabled by a corrupt system that prioritizes wealth over human lives. The fake food scandal exposes the rot at the heart of China's food industry and the devastating consequences for its people. The roots of a toxic crisis. The proliferation of fake food in China is no accident. It is the inevitable result of a system that rewards greed and punishes integrity. Several factors have conspired to create this nightmare, each more infuriating than the last. Greed over humanity. At the core of this crisis is an insatiable greed that permeates the food industry. Producers, driven by the desire to maximize profits, replace high-quality ingredients with cheap, dangerous substitutes. Premium meats, organic produce, and natural products are swapped for spoiled scraps, industrial chemicals, and synthetic fillers, all to shave pennies off production cost. This is not a mistake. It is a calculated choice to sacrifice consumer health for financial gain. The competitive market only fuels this depravity, as vendors undercut each other with ever cheaper, ever deadlier products, turning the food supply into a race to the bottom. A regulatory farce. China's so-called food safety regulations are a cruel joke, offering little more than empty promises and hollow assurances. The government's oversight is a sham, crippled by underfunding, understaffing, and rampant corruption. Regulatory agencies tasked with protecting the public are either complicit or incompetent, allowing fake food to flood the market with impunity. Penalties for violations are laughably lenient, barely a slap on the wrist for those poisoning the population. The absence of rigorous testing and inspections leaves consumers defenseless, abandoned by the very authorities meant to safeguard them. This is not regulation, it is abandonment. A veil of deception. Transparency in China's food supply chain is non-existent, replaced by a deliberate veil of deception. Consumers are kept in the dark about the origins, processing, and ingredients of their food, forced to rely on misleading labels and false promises. Producers exploit this opacity, misrepresenting their products with brazen audacity. The lack of information is not an oversight, it is a weapon used to manipulate and mislead, ensuring that consumers remain ignorant of the dangers they ingest. This betrayal of trust is a cornerstone of the fake food crisis, leaving the public powerless to protect themselves. Cultural complicity. Cultural factors, too, have played a shameful role in this crisis. The obsession with affordability and accessibility has created a market for cheap, substandard goods, particularly among the poor. Rapid urbanization and industrialization have outstripped the development of safety standards, allowing producers to cut corners without consequence. The pressure to meet soaring demand has turned food production into a reckless, profit-driven machine, where quality and safety are afterthoughts. This cultural complicity normalizes the abnormal, making fake food an accepted part of daily life. A health catastrophe unleashed. The consumption of fake and contaminated food is not just a risk, it is a death sentence, delivered slowly or swiftly depending on the poison. The health implications are catastrophic, affecting every segment of society. Immediate poisoning. Fake food is a breeding ground for pathogens like Salmonella, E. coli, and Staphylococcus aureus, lurking in spoiled or improperly processed products. These contaminants trigger foodborne illnesses that strike with brutal force: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and fever that can escalate to hospitalization or death. Children, the elderly, and the immunocompromised are particularly vulnerable, their bodies unable to withstand the assault of these deadly microbes. Every bite of contaminated food is a roll of the dice, with lives hanging in the balance. A slow death by toxins. The long-term effects of fake food are even more insidious. Carcinogenic chemicals such as formaldehyde and borax are routinely used to enhance appearance or preserve fraudulent products. These poisons accumulate in the body, silently increasing the risk of cancer with every meal. Neurological damage is another grim reality, with additives like alum and excessive sodium compounds eroding cognitive function, causing memory loss and triggering disorders that rob victims of their minds. Nutritional deficiencies, caused by the replacement of real ingredients with synthetic fillers, lead to anemia, weakened immunity, and a host of other ailments. This is not food. It is a slow-acting poison. 2. Targeting the vulnerable. The most heartbreaking victims are children and pregnant women, whose futures are stolen by fake food. Toxic substances stunt children's growth, impair their cognitive development, and weaken their bones, condemning them to a lifetime of struggle. Pregnant women face miscarriage, birth defects, and developmental issues in their unborn children, perpetuating a cycle of suffering. The widespread availability of contaminated food turns every meal into a potential tragedy, with generational consequences that will haunt China for decades. A society in ruins. The fake food scandal is not just a health crisis, it is a societal collapse tearing at the fabric of Chinese life. Trust obliterated. Public trust in China's food supply chain has been obliterated, replaced by a pervasive sense of betrayal. Consumers bombarded with stories of toxic milk powder, moldy foods, and fraudulent products no longer believe in the safety of what they eat. This distrust extends to producers, retailers, and the government, all seen as complicit in the poisoning of the nation. The erosion of trust fractures social cohesion, leaving individuals isolated and powerless in a system that has failed them. When trust dies, society suffers. Economic devastation. The economic toll of the fake food crisis is staggering. Legitimate producers, unable to compete with the flood of cheap, fraudulent goods, face declining sales and market share, driving ethical businesses into ruin. The costs of food-borne illness outbreaks, medical treatment, lost productivity, and public health interventions drain the economy, burdening an already strained system. The fake food industry is a parasite, feeding on the lifeblood of honest commerce and leaving devastation in its wake. Widening inequality. The crisis disproportionately harms the poor, who are forced to buy cheap, contaminated food due to financial constraints. Wealthier consumers, able to afford safer options, escape the worst of the dangers, while the less fortunate are condemned to sickness and suffering. This stark inequality deepens social divides, reinforcing disparities in health, opportunity, and quality of life. The fake food scandal is not just a health issue, it is a class war, waged against the most vulnerable. A nation demoralized. The constant threat of fake food has plunged Chinese society into a state of despair. The realization that nothing is safe breeds cynicism and helplessness as consumers grapple with the impossibility of avoiding harm. Reports of widespread fraud, toxic vaccines, contaminated classrooms, and poisonous foods paint a picture of a nation betrayed by its own systems. Eczema. This demoralization weakens societal bonds, replacing hope with resignation and unity with division. China is a nation on its knees, poisoned by its own greed. An impossible fight. Addressing the fake food crisis is a Herculean task, made nearly impossible by systemic corruption and entrenched interests. A broken system. Regulatory reform is a pipe dream in a system riddled with corruption. Strengthening oversight, increasing penalties, and improving testing require resources and political will that are conspicuously absent. Agencies meant to protect the public are either bought off or too weak to act, leaving consumers at the mercy of profiteers. Accountability is a fantasy in a system that rewards failure and punishes whistleblowers. Labyrinth of deception. The complexity of China's food supply chain is a nightmare, with countless opportunities for fraud at every stage. Traceability systems, which could track food from source to table, are a logistical impossibility without massive investment and coordination. The labyrinthine nature of the supply chain is not a flaw, it is a feature, designed to shield wrongdoers from scrutiny. Consumers left powerless. Raising consumer awareness is a futile exercise when information is controlled and manipulated. Educating the public about fake food requires overcoming a tidal wave of misinformation and apathy, as well as a deep-seated distrust of authority. Consumers, already battered by betrayal, lack the tools or resources to fight back, trapped in a system that profits from their suffering. A culture of complicity. Changing cultural attitudes toward food safety is a Sisyphean task. The prioritization of affordability over quality is deeply ingrained, reinforced by economic realities and societal pressures. Demanding transparency and accountability requires a cultural revolution, one that seems unlikely in a nation where profit is king and human lives are expendable.